So let me first start off by saying I am not supposed to be here. Now don't worry, you're not in the wrong room, and I am in fact Kemal Onor. But I'm still not supposed to be here. Why am I not supposed to be here? Because at the age of 13, I suffered a massive stroke. I had a 5% chance of surviving this stroke because when I had my stroke, it happened during a basketball game. Despite not being able to tell me why it happened, they were able to say it's not because of the basketball game. But I had a 5% chance of surviving this stroke because we were at a high school where there was no cell service and the only landline was behind a locked door. So it took 4 hours for an ambulance to get there. Now I was 13, so no one's going, oh, what's wrong with this kid? Oh, he's probably having a stroke. But the scary statistic is 1 out of every 3 strokes is a young person. Now usually it's related to history of stroke within the family, it's hereditary, or maybe the kid is obese or there's some reason behind it. I was a healthy 13-year-old kid. I set and held straight track records for the state of Vermont. So when my parents said, why did our son have a stroke? The doctor's response was, quote, the brain is a mystery. As in, we don't know. All right? So what 5% looks like, I'm just going to move around over here and hopefully not get, so 5%, imagine if 100, I'm breaking stuff. Hold on, technical difficulties. Does this need to go back on? Or can I just put that like that? I don't know, maybe I'll just hold it. Okay. But what 5% looks like is if 100 people had the exact same stroke that I had, 5 of us would be left. 5 people would be left out of 100 people. Imagine if 1,000 people had the same stroke that I had. Again, 5%, how many people would be left? Quick math, 50, exactly. There'd be 50 people left. That means we've lost 950 people, which is a crazy number to me, and I feel very fortunate in the fact that I am still alive. So before I go any further, I'd like to do something. I'd like to have you guys participate to whatever ability you have, but I want everyone to reach as high as they can possibly reach. Reach as high as you can possibly go. Reach, 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 reach. Now drop it down. Now reach higher. Now reach higher. Now, guys, I told you the first time to reach as high as you can go, right? But you just all reached higher. You all reached higher. So what's the point of that exercise? That point of the exercise is to show that if you stretch yourself, you can continue to grow and you can reach higher and higher and higher. All right? So I hope that exercise was useful. So as I said before, I was a star state athlete. Again, I set 3 state track records for the state of Vermont for the 11, 12-year-old group. 100-meter dash, 80-meter hurdles, and running long jump. I was a year-round athlete. You don't have to applaud for that, not yet. There will be a time for a woo! But if you do that, just throw $100 bills at me. I'm okay with it. I'm perfectly fine with people throwing money at me. I'm not going to start taking my jacket off or anything. I go to the doctor's office, he says, can you dress down to your comfort level? I'm like, this is it. But so I was a year-round athlete. I played basketball in the winter. I forgot to set a timer. Someone will tell me when my time's almost up, right? Like, give me a 5-minute, like, oh, you're almost at 20 minutes. Someone will do that? Okay, cool. So I was a year-round athlete, played basketball in the winter, football in the fall. During the spring, I would play any sport that I could get my hands on. So my identity, my entire identity as a young kid, being 13 years old, was I am going to grow up and become an athlete. I'm going to become a pro athlete. going to be that 1 in a million who makes it. Unfortunately, I have a stroke, and suddenly I lose my identity. Now, why is identity so important? Why is it so important to have a visualization of who you are? Because and we see this all throughout life, when people lose their identity, when people suddenly have the rug ripped out from under them, there's a lot of discomfort there, and we're forced to grow. And one of the biggest things that I would say that I gained from my stroke was, despite the fact that I lost the left half of my use of the left half of my body and I'm not able to drive, I've gained so much from my stroke. I've gained a deep insight that I'd say many others my age don't have. And so I lost my identity, which is next one here. So when I had my stroke, I was told many things. I was told I would never walk again. I was told I would never finish high school. I've completed a master's level program. Now's the time to clap if you want to. I was also told I would never live alone because of the severity of my stroke. I would never be able to live on my own. I live alone, and it's wonderful because every single pizza that is in my house is a personal pizza. I can have whatever toppings I want, and I'm going to ruin all these mics. But I don't have to take in anyone else's consideration about what toppings you want on your pizza. I don't care what you want, because I can have whatever I want because I live alone. It's not, I live alone and no one will ever love me, which is one way of looking at it, but I choose not to look at it that way. I choose to look at it as I get to eat my own pizza. But so for me, after I had my stroke, I had to redefine who I was. I had to figure out, what is my identity? And there was a lot of concern of, am I going to be able to finish high school? And for me, there was a drastic change from how my peers saw me, because when I was Mr. Athlete, everyone wanted to be my friend. I was the jock kid. You know, everyone would say, hey, you want to come over and we can play video games or we can do whatever. Afterwards, I ended up eating lunch every single day in high school alone because kids didn't know what to say to me. And that isolation allowed me to have the perspective of looking internally and figuring out, who am I? What am I going to be able to do to make sure that I am happy moving forward from this incident, having to rebuild who I am as a person now that I can no longer participate to the same degree that I was in sports, now that I've lost my entire identity. Who am I as a person? What is important to me, and what am I capable of doing as I move forward? And for me, I ended up finding music was another passion of mine. So I graduated, I ended up finishing high school, and I went on to college, and in college I studied music. I studied music for about 2 years. And being a music major, that became my new identity. And so when you figure out your identity, you need to understand that you need to constantly make micro adjustments. When a plane's flying from A to B, it's constantly going, oh, you're a little too far to the left, now you have to go right. Oh, now we're too far right, we have to go back to the left. So we're constantly making these micro adjustments back and forth until we eventually get to where we need to get to. So after 2 years of studying music and saying, I'm going to be a music major, I got to a point where every day I'd wake up and just go, I don't want to go to class. Why do my classes make me hate my major? Right? Reason, it was no longer fun, it was no longer inspiring, it wasn't what I had set out for it to do. And what I found was that I was starting to go, okay, I'm going to finish my music homework really quickly so I can then do some writing. And I eventually showed this writing to a friend, and she said, why don't you change your major to creative writing? And I went, that's never occurred to me before. And because my identity was, I'm a music major. That's what it was for those 2 years. So there was a lot of concern, a lot of fear of just Well, for one, my reading speed was not good. It would take me so long to read anything because when I had my stroke, I lost the left half of my vision. But I ended up changing my major to creative writing, and I remember a pivotal point in my development, in my growth, was that, I know I said I was going to move around a lot, but I'm afraid I'm going to break something if I keep moving. So when I changed my major to creative writing, I remember my first lit class. It was like English Lit Part 2 or no, it was American Lit Part 2. Whatever it was, it doesn't matter. But I remember we had to read a book, William Faulkner's As I Lay Dying, which is a book that only creative writing majors read. And so we had the first, and this was my first lit class, my first really intensive reading course, where for Monday we had to finish half of the novel for Monday. So I take all day Friday, all day Saturday, Sunday, and I was able to take my time, and I got a little bit beyond halfway, but then the second half of that book was due for Wednesday. And what happened with that was I had classes all day Monday, all day Tuesday. So Tuesday night rolls around, and I'm looking at this book going, oh my goodness, how am I going to finish this novel? I still have half of this novel to finish, and I have tonight to do it. So I ended up making a sort of a false ultimatum. I said, if I don't finish this novel tonight, I'm going to have to change my major again. And I did not want to change my major again. I wanted to, because I felt a passion, I felt very inspired to study writing. I remember waking up and going, I'm so excited to go to class today, which is something people usually don't say. People usually, why do I have to go to this? Why do I have to do this? And that's how I felt with music. And when I changed to creative writing, it became exciting. I felt that fire again. And when I was reading this novel, just pages were flying. There was probably sparks coming off my fingertips. And at some point, it just hit me, and all the lights came on, and I started crying into the pages of this book. It was something like, I'm so glad I don't have a roommate. Because I didn't have a roommate. And so I was just staying up all night, reading and reading and reading and reading, and it just suddenly hit me that I was so happy and so excited to be at a point in my life where I was able to study this. So that's my college story, and I later went on to get a master's degree in writing, which was, pretty awesome. But why is this entire talk, I still have time, I hope. So why is this talk called Learning to Fail? The reason why this talk is called Learning to Fail is why we're going to transition right now into talking about a time that I feel that is a definitive moment in my life where I moved out to Grand Rapids, Michigan. I moved there to follow a year of AmeriCorps and to follow a girl. Don't recommend it. The girl part. AmeriCorps is wonderful and it's great. You don't make a lot of money, which is why I was sort of in a tricky situation. But yeah, so I made the transition out to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and doing the dumb thing that I did was moved in with this girl very quickly. We had, been talking on online dating, which again, do not recommend. If you want, go do it. It's not something I would really recommend, but don't listen to me. I'm an old fogey. It's okay. So I moved out to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I immediately figured out this is not going to work. She is not someone that I can see a future with. This is not going to end up working out well for either one of us. So we end up breaking up, but unfortunately, I'm at a stage where I don't have enough money to live on my own, so we're sort of stuck living together, and it just becomes very awkward, and it becomes increasingly awkward as she starts having her new boyfriend coming over, and because she was the way that she was, no judgments, just a vindictive person. It's okay. She said, because you can't live anywhere else, you have to sleep on the floor. So for a period of about 6 months, I was sleeping on the floor in the living room. well, her boyfriend would come over and they would be in the bed. I'd be like, oh, I'm sure there's pillows in that bed. Because I would wake up and go, oh, my back, I'm too old. Because sleeping on the floor for a prolonged period of time is not fun. Again, I don't recommend it. Sleep in beds, they're much more comfy. So things just got proceedingly worse and worse and worse. And then the kicker was when she said, by the way, I need you out this day, and my new boyfriend's moving in this day. So I go, okay, that's fine. So I ended up signing on for, it was coming towards the end of my term of AmeriCorps out in Grand Rapids, and I said, you know what, I had a wonderful time living off of nothing. Let me do it again. Why not? Again, I do recommend AmeriCorps. I did it for 2 years, but I signed a contract for that 3rd year, and I found a place to live, met this guy, we shook hands, and he said, oh yeah, you can rent a room here. And unfortunately, what happened was, the day of moving, right, the girl's like, my new boyfriend's moving in, you need to be out now. I have a friend come over, and we start moving everything into a U-Haul, and so everything's in the U-Haul, and I messaged the guy one more time, say, hey, just triple checking, you are home, I am coming with the U-Haul. And his response is, did you not get my other message? I go, oh no, this is not good. So unfortunately, he was an older guy, so his mother had health problems. She was going to be moving in. And within that text, I became homeless. I became homeless with no money and nowhere to go, and I just shut down. I went, oh my God, what am I going to do? My stuff's in the U-Haul. I can't stay here, and I have nowhere to go. What am I going to do? Am I going to live in the U-Haul? I can't do this. So I immediately called some family friends here in Vermont, and the first thing out of my mouth was, I'm a failure. I'm a failure, and I cried in the bathroom, sobbing on the phone with her, saying, I don't know what I'm going to do. And thankfully, the friend that helped me move said, all right, we're going to figure this out. And she said, let's just send all your stuff home. Because I'd paid to ship everything out to Michigan. And then, so we take the U-Haul down to UPS, and we show up with dollies, and I remember standing in the UPS store and just going, and my friend says, tell him. I'm like, I have to ship all the stuff back home. And so $800 later, my stuff's going back to Vermont, and I have less than $50 in my bank account. So I end up having to call my family friends, and they lend me money for a hotel for 2 nights, and they allow me to get a bus ticket from Grand Rapids, Michigan to Montpelier, Vermont. Now, this is where the worst bus ride of my entire life comes into play. So I left Grand Rapids Friday around 1:30 in the afternoon, right? And so normally it's a 16-hour drive. It was over 43 hours on that bus before I got home, because we go Grand Rapids to Detroit. Now, I have 4 bags with me, and I'm like, this is all that I have. Everything else is on its way to Vermont. These bags are not leaving my side. So I'm in Detroit, in the Detroit bus terminal, going like, oh my God, you're not taking my bags. Get away from me. These are my bags. And so we get to Detroit, and they say, we have no drivers and no buses are ready. 3-hour delay. So eventually we got another bus. We get to Cleveland. They say, here's your new itinerary. You're now going through Canada for some reason. Because originally we were going to go up through New York, which makes sense. And thank goodness I had my passport on me, because I remember almost sending that with my stuff, because I was like, I don't need this. Why do I need to have this with me? Because otherwise I would have been stuck at the border, and I probably wouldn't be here again. Yes, your name's Kemal Onor, and you want to come into our country? Not happening. Little joke there. So we end up going all the way out to Erie, Pennsylvania. And I'm like, let's go that way through New York, because we want to go through Syracuse and Albany and get home. And so, new itinerary, we're now going all the way out to PA, where you can say, oh, we're so close. And then we're going all the way to Toronto, Canada. And so even at border crossing, the guy says, what's your business in Canada, eh? I go, I'm just trying to get home to Vermont. And he goes, that's in the other way, eh? I'm like, I know I'm going the wrong way. I'm at the mercy of the bus people. Tell them to get me home. So they end up letting me through, and we go all the way out to Toronto, then we go all the way from Toronto to Montreal, and there is nothing out there. There's a few random Tim Hortons. I was losing my mind on this bus because I was on it for 43 plus hours. And every time I'd see a Tim Hortons, I'd say, that's the same Tim Hortons. This driver's making left-hand turns. 3 minutes? Okay. So that was a terrible experience, right? I finally get home to Montpelier, Vermont, 3 a.m. Monday morning. It wasn't fun anymore. I have pictures of me getting on the bus. I'm like, hey, I'm so happy to be going home. I get off the bus. I'm like, not funny anymore. This is not funny. So why do I tell that story? Because it was a moment where I felt that I had failed, and I want to challenge every one of you to reconsider what you think failure is, because I felt like a colossal failure having to get on that bus, having to send all my stuff home. But what that led me to realize is that there are no moments of true failure, because every moment is a learning opportunity. I now know if I ever have to get another 43 plus hour bus ride with 4 bags of luggage, it will be okay and I will make it through it, because I made it through it once and I know I can make it again. All right, so learning opportunities. Please think about different ways that you can learn from failure. Continue to stretch yourself. Continue to put yourself in situations where you're a little uncomfortable, and know that it's okay. Sometimes you'll fall flat on your face, and know that you can always get up, dust yourself off, and you can do a better job, and you can learn from your experiences. Thank you very much. I am Kemal Onor. Time.